The movie begins with Kirk Kettner and his ex-girlfriend Marnie have taken some time out of their relationship. But now Kirk wants to be together again, as he practices his speech on how to get back with his girlfriend. His friends can't help but mock Kirk for being pathetic. His best friend, Stainer, tells him that he hates his girlfriend and wishes that they'd better stay broken up. A few hours later, Kirk meets with Maureen, who turns out to be dating a new guy named Ron. Nevertheless, Kirk kicks him out of the room so he can talk with her. However, she informs him that Ron is more successful than he is, even if he owns an off-brand Pizza Hut business. When he tries to give her an earrings holder, with their picture engraved on it, she rejects it. The following day, Kirk's at his job as airport security, when he notices a beautiful girl standing in line to board a plane. Although his manager, Mr. Fuller, is trying to get her to be strip searched, Kirk steps in and prevents him from doing so. Grateful, she thanks him for helping her out, where he learns that her name is Molly. On the plane, Molly realizes that she left her phone at security. So, she has her friend, Patty, who's boarding the plane with her, calls her phone. Coincidentally, Kirk answers it. Although he tries to give it back to her before the plane takes off, she tells him to hold it on until the following day, since she's coming back for an event there at a museum. Nervous, Kirk agrees. The following night, Kirk tells his friend, Devin, what happened with Molly. Although he's reluctant about meeting her, Devin assures him that everything will work out. So, Devin goes with Kirk to the event, where he asks some waitresses where they can find Molly. Turns out, one of them, Katie, is her sister, and she points them to her direction. Therefore, Kirk walks over to Molly to give her her phone back. However, when Kirk tries to excuse himself to leave, Molly invites him to stay for a few drinks, which he accepts. Unfortunately, Kirk spills his drink on an unknown man, who turns out to be the museum's director, prompting into him and Devin getting kicked out. But Molly runs after him before he leaves, then asks him to hang out with her the following day at the Islanders game. Evidently, Kirk agrees to her offer. The following day at the airport, Stainer and Devin try to talk Kirk into going out with Molly, whom he believes is out of his league. Meanwhile, Marnie tells Kirk that she's taking his place on the family vacation with his parents, and that Ron is coming along with them. Fortunately, Kirk doesn't care as he's going with Molly. At night, Kirk brings Stainer with him to meet Molly and Patty. However, Stainer tries to set himself up with Molly. But, when Patty and Kirk are left alone, she informs him that Molly's indeed into him. Unfortunately, a few days later, Stainer keeps telling him that there's no way that she likes him. Although Molly brought Patty with her set her up with Stainer, he's more attracted to Molly. Luckily, Molly calls Kirk to ask him out again, which agitates Stainer. Meanwhile, Patty tries to discourage Molly from going out with Kirk, since he's not the type of guy she usually goes for. The following day, Kirk is still confused on why would Molly want him, but Stainer tells him that he got along with her at the game just fine. A few hours later, Kirk and Molly sit together at dinner, where he learns that Molly used to be a lawyer. However, because of his outfit, he looks like he's a part of the staff. So, when he goes to sit back down, he finds Cam, Molly's ex-boyfriend, sitting in his chair. Luckily, Molly clears the air, and Cam leaves as quickly as he came. After dinner, he gets to know a bit more about her family. He then decides to drive her home, where she kisses him goodnight. The following day, Kirk tells his friends about his successful date with Molly. Although he tells his friends that he invited Molly to have dinner with his parents, they express their dislike with the idea, since it's too soon to be meeting parents. However, when she comes over to his house, his parents are mesmerized by her beauty. Later at dinner, Molly sits down with his family, where they ask her all types of inappropriate questions. When Marnie first sees her, she decides to get all dressed up since Ron is flirting with her. Although his dad tries to ask her what she likes in Kirk, she replies that he makes her laugh. Evidently, his dad invites her to join them on the family vacation. Despite Marnie's protests, she agrees to their offer. However, she tells Molly that she and Kirk used to date, which she doesn't react to. Later, she spends time with his family, where they play hockey in their basement. At night, Molly takes Kirk back to her apartment, when she tries to make out with him. However, Kirk's inexperience causes him to finish quickly. Unfortunately, Molly's parents show up at her house with Katie, which forces Kirk to hide the stain in his pants. Luckily, he manages to run out of the apartment before anyone could notice his suspicious behavior. The following day, Kirk's embarrassed by his friends bullying him for his inexperience, when Marnie decides to tell Kirk that she'd like to date him again. However, he tells her that he has real feelings for Molly. But, ever since the previous night's incident, she hasn't been answering his calls. Stainer then tells him it was too good to be true. Meanwhile, Devin gives him the courage he needs to win her back. A few days later, Kirk goes with his friends, Stainer and Jack, to an event that Molly's organizing. Although that she's hurt he didn't spend enough time with her family, he tells her that he only left since he ejaculated in his pants. Luckily, Molly believes him, and all is well between them again. Unfortunately, Kim shows up, then decides to tell him about his plan to get Molly back, since he doesn't believe Kirk's dating her. Throughout the days, Molly and Kirk go on a lot of dates together, with people congratulating Kirk on getting a girl like Molly. Although Kirk still hasn't recovered from his earlier incident, Jack instructs him to take care of his body, so he won't be insecure when the time comes. Nevertheless, Kirk fails with trying to shave his body hair. So, he brings in Devin to help him, which works out for him in the end. At night, Molly organizes a birthday party for her sister, Kate. The party's a huge success, but Kirk has to face Molly's parents again, and apologize to them for being rude the first time he met them. However, Cam shows up uninvited to the party, where he gets into Kirk's head that Molly's not as perfect as she seems. Although he tries to pressure him into admitting it, Cam tells him to figure it out for himself. At Molly's apartment, things between Molly and Kirk get heated. When they get started to undress, Kirk's insecurity starts to show. To make him feel better, Molly decides to show him something she's insecure about, which turns out, she has webbed toes. Irritated, Kirk's baffled that this is the only thing that's wrong with her. Unfortunately, they get into a fight since Kirk isn't treating Molly like a human being, just like Cam. Nevertheless, she confesses that she went out with him, since she thought he wouldn't treat her like that. In the end, Kirk leaves her apartment. A few days later, Kirk and his family are going on vacation, where he's trying to get over his breakup with Molly by rebounding with Marnie. Although he's not happy with her, he's trying to make it work. Meanwhile, Stainer realizes that why his girlfriend broke up with him is because he didn't think he was good enough for himself. So, he decides to talk to Kirk on the plane to get him back with Molly. Unfortunately, he doesn't manage to get him off on the plane. Therefore, he calls Patty to lend him a hand in bringing them back together. Meanwhile, before the plane's about to take off, Kirk realizes that he doesn't want to leave Molly behind. However, he's unable to get off since the crew locked up the cabin doors. On the other hand, Patty drives Molly to the airport so she can catch Kirk's plane before it leaves. Therefore, Stainer decides to get her to board the plane. However, once they arrive at the gates, they find out that the plane departed. So, Stainer calls Jack and tells him to stop the plane. Luckily, Jack manages to buy them enough time for maintenance, which is all the passengers exiting the plane. As for Kirk, as soon as he gets off, he starts to run from Marnie, who's trying to force him back on the plane. Then, Kirk calls Stainer, finding out that Molly's waiting for him at the gate. Even though Marnie still runs after him, he knocks her out so he can get to Molly. At the gate, Kirk tries to apologize to Molly for putting her on a pedestal, but she interrupts him by saying that she doesn't care about any of his insecurities, since she just wants to be with him. Kirk forgives her for what she said. And finally, he fully grasps the idea that he and Molly are meant for each other, and passionately kisses her. It may have taken him a bit longer, but people say better late than never. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hit that like button if you did, subscribe if you're new. And at last, I'll say stay well, stay safe, thanks.